Hey, it's Osman with House Einstein, and this is a real estate market update for Boulder for December 2019. So why should you watch this video? Well, maybe you're thinking about buying or selling and you want to get the most accurate information about what's happening in the market. You've seen some information come through on Zillow or in the local news. Perhaps you've got a friend that's a realtor and they've told you what's happening in the market, but you're not entirely sure. For most realtors, if you're selling, it's a great time for you to sell. If you're buying, they think it's a great time for you to buy. And the reality of the market is it can't be both. So what I'm bringing here in this video is an opportunity for you to see what's really happening in the market without the sales pitch. Are you ready? Here we go. As I often write about on the blog, the real estate market's hyper-local. Conditions vary by property type, design, beds and baths, deferred maintenance, and a lot more, but the ultimate criteria for value is always location. This analysis is for the city of Boulder, and it's based on the latest arm's length transaction data. The data is still a little fresh, and some realtors are a little slow to update the database, so keep in mind that there will be additional updates to the database in the next few weeks, and this analysis should be considered conservative. The chart you see here shows total inventory in the city of Boulder, not the county, for detached single-family houses. The blue line represents the monthly average of the past 3 years. The white bar is standard deviation. The yellow line with the triangular markers represents the last 12 months. And of course, the most recent data for November is on the right. And as you can see in the chart, there were 215 houses on the market in November, and that's 22.4% above average. High inventory is nothing new. As the chart shows, it's been elevated for the past 12 months. And if this chart went out even further, you'd see it's been elevated for longer than that. This chart shows new listings per month for the past 12 months. Again, the yellow line with the triangles represents the most current data. That's for the past 12 months, and the blue line is the average monthly data for the past 3 years. In the past, I haven't paid a lot of attention to data for new listings specifically. I prefer to look at the total listings, but the Denver Post had an article out recently that made a big deal about last month's drop in new listings, so I thought I'd take a closer look. Honestly, I think it's just an aberration. One data point is not a trend, but I guess we'll see. And as you can see from this chart, for most of the year, there has been an increase in new listings with the exception of last December and this past November, where new listings were 20% below average. Pending sales. The market's bounced around a bit over the past 12 months, with the last 3 showing a mild increase in activity. It could be a sign of savvy buyers taking advantage of better selection from the higher inventory and getting a head start on next year. Anecdotally, my buyers have been more selective, and a number of them pulled the trigger in October. I had 3 closings over Thanksgiving week alone. This chart shows closed deals for the past 12 months. You can see there was a decent spike in November, 78 deals closed, or 17% above average. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the data is still preliminary. I expect a few stragglers to add a handful of sales for at least another week or so. Okay, let's talk about attached dwellings. The next 4 charts have a blue background to distinguish them from the previous set. These are for City of Boulder attached dwellings, or townhomes and condos. As before, the yellow triangles and blue circles continue to represent the same thing, and keep in mind that we're not talking about the county, we're talking about just the City of Boulder. And in this chart, you can see inventory has been substantially elevated for the past 12 months, well outside one standard deviation. And that delta appears to begin to narrow in August. Last month, it was almost 30% above average. Let's talk about new listings. From January through May, sellers were feverishly adding new listings at a pace higher than average. Beginning in June, it began to revert to the mean. Last month, Boulder saw 43 new listings hit the market, or only about 2.4% above average. Pending sales. The story here is not as clear. Beginning in June, it was slightly elevated. In October, it dropped a bit, and then it came back to 13% above average last month. The analysts among you will note that most of this activity has been trending within one standard deviation, which in plain English means it's not really much to get excited about. Condo and town sales have been slightly below average for the past few months. Because inventory is almost 30% above average, this means buyers can be more selective, and in some cases can negotiate more aggressively. But keep in mind, it all depends on demand for that specific property type and location. For most of the past year, smart listing agents have been pushing sellers to be reasonable about pricing, and in some cases even underpricing. This is called leading the market, and it makes sense for condos and townhomes, especially if you're serious about selling. It's not quite the same story for houses, especially at prices below 1.5. Several of my clients have been in bidding wars for houses in the fourth quarter, but that doesn't mean there haven't also been some bargains in the rough. Pricing mistakes can also sometimes happen. Last month, an inexperienced agent listed an entry-level ranch in South Boulder, and it was priced at least $25,000 below what I thought was fair value. It was snapped up almost immediately. So what can you conclude from this analysis? 1. Don't believe the hype. The market's full of opportunity, inventory is high, and if you don't see what you're looking for now, odds are you're going to find it soon. Just stay disciplined, stay focused, and make sure you're set up with listing alerts so that you can get the newest inventory right away. Number 2, don't write an offer or list your property for sale without a detailed analysis, and that's not this video. What I mean by that is you should be looking at the very specifics about the property, location, beds and baths, and have a firm sense of the competitive landscape for that property. If you look at the general analysis that I just presented, you would see that inventory is up 30%, yet the bidding war I was in this past weekend had 5 offers for the same property. So you have to do your homework before you jump in. Number 3, if you're a buyer, don't be fearful. It's unlikely there's going to be an exodus from Boulder Real Estate anytime soon. And if you're seeing more selection than you expected, consider that an opportunity to be more judicious in the property that you choose or to negotiate more aggressively and get a better deal. When there's a downturn, the Boulder market tends to react much slower, and the downturn tends to be much shallower than with the other markets in Boulder County, in Louisville, Lafayette, and Longmont. Boulder tends to be a safer market to invest in when we're at times of potentially higher risk of a downturn. Lastly, there's no crystal ball. Even though the Boulder market has done incredibly well over many years, and the downturns tend to be shallow and should be treated as buying opportunities, and I'm encouraging you never to sell because that's my personal philosophy, and it's how I've seen people be very successful in real estate investing. It doesn't mean that I have a crystal ball to what's going to happen in the future. Nobody has a crystal ball. So you should always consult with your professional advisors, whether that's a real estate advisor or your investment advisor. Maybe you should even see your spiritual advisor, and keep in mind that the market is prone to uncertainties, and ultimately there's no guarantees in real estate. Now, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe. We're growing the channel. I'm getting better at videography. I'm not an expert at making YouTube videos quite as yet, but I really want to help my buyers and sellers, as well as the general public who watches these videos, understand what's really happening in the Boulder market, see past the smoke and mirrors, and make a smarter real estate decision. And your first person that you should always talk to about real estate, if you're serious about buying or selling, is realtors. You shouldn't necessarily go with the first one you meet. You should talk to a few. And if you're interviewing realtors and would like to meet with me, you know where to find me. I'm at houseeinstein.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.